Welcome back to Google headquarters in Mountain View, California. I'm Louis Gray, here with another episode of Measure Matters, episode 10.
And I'm Breen Baker.
Breen is my special guest today. Usually Krista Seiden is here, but she is off traveling. We're really excited to have Breen talk to us today. He's a product manager on Google Analytics, and we have a lot of stuff talking about today. So, as you know, every time we go through one of these events, and this is our 10th episode, we talk about what we discussed the last show. We're also going to talk about what's new in measurement, the word on the street, and today our big topic, which is why Breen is here, is talking about real-time analytics. Now, the last time we talked with you, we went deep into advanced analysis. Krista really dove into our Analytics 360 product, which really recently got a rebrand into Google Marketing Platform. That's right. We talked about Data Studio coming out of beta, some new optimized options, analysis with BigQuery, and really went into funnel analysis and segment overlap. And that was really exciting for me as someone who's been in marketing for a long time to see the options that you could do to segment your campaigns and talk to different customers based on their attributes.
Incredibly cool.
So we had a lot of conversations, especially on social, as people would say, wow, I've never seen funnel analysis before, I've never seen segment overlap, and people understanding that you can really tailor all of your campaigns and optimize what you're doing in every aspect. So since then, we've launched a few things here on the analytics side, and the first of which is a new nano degree from Udacity. And Udacity, as you know, in the last several years, has really become the go-to for online learning and certificates. And so they worked with Enor, which is a great Google Analytics certified partner, to build new intelligence capabilities and analytics mastery to help you level up and become a better marketer, better business person, and better salesperson. And so we want you to be able to check this out. If you haven't already kind of leveled up in analytics, is to check out this nano degree from Udacity and take the course. And obviously it's going to be supported by Google and by Enor. I'm really excited to see this happen.
Yeah, I know the guys at Enor. We talk fairly regularly at all the events. They're great guys, and I think if you're interested in continuous improvement, this is a great way to, as Louis said, level up.
And one thing you talk about continuous improvement, our product continues to improve. So even if you got a certificate a couple years ago, things have changed. The world has changed.
Very true.
I think both of us, when we started at Google, desktop was king, and that's no longer the case. Mobile's really just blown it away.
I know, it's just like a few years ago, and it feels like a lifetime, right?
Absolutely. On the web, it's very fast. So one thing I want to take a look at is personalization features in Optimize. These just launched. So this really lets you deploy new experiments and find the right ones that work for you. So if you've done an A/B test, and you find that one is outperforming the other, all you literally have to do is say deploy leader, and it will put the code in the website and show you the right one. And you can even personalize by audience. Imagine if you have a specific campaign for those visitors from Canada, and you want to show a different website for Canadian visitors as opposed to the US, you can set that up in Optimize and run it automatically. So definitely check out the blog post about that. It was a really big launch. We're excited about it.
Yeah, this is incredibly exciting. I'm very happy for that team for this launch.
Absolutely. Also, this is the number one request on the Data Studio side, and I know when I talk here with Krista is that every single time we talk about Measure Matters, we talk about Data Studio. And that's because they continue to bang out new features. The product managers on that team are very solid. They listen to the community, and the number one request that we constantly got is the request to export to PDF. And I think sometimes you say, well, wait a second, we've already got a URL, it's automatically real-time updating, isn't that enough? And obviously not always. You want to be able to have an export which takes a point-in-time snapshot of what that report looks like and be able to share it however you want, like any other file. So if you want to email it as an attachment, if you want to save it to your Google Drive, or literally if you want to back it up to a floppy,
yeah,
you can do that.
We're going back to those desktop days now.
Back to desktop days. I should have said DVD, but they're not that big of a file. So a floppy will do. 1.3 megabytes is really all you need.
Yeah.
So users asked for it with this Data Studio report to PDF, and now you have it. And so we're happy to have that. And so one thing that we're always excited about when I run the social calendar and take a look at all the things that people are saying on the web is your feedback and really understanding what's kind of gotten your attention on the world from Analytics and Data Studio and Optimize. But really, this one kind of threw me for a loop. I was excited to see this from Adios Mani, one of my teammates from the Chrome DevRel days, is he's taking a look and saying, look, it's not just enough to build a beautiful website anymore. And when you look at the way that you can measure your website and how it is performing, you have to budget in terms of performance budget. And that means the total number of kilobytes, the total number of megabytes, because as people continue to consume your content on mobile, you cannot always suggest that they have the highest capability on broadband networking. They don't always have the fastest CPUs on their phones. And so when you're doing a website redesign, and so we looked at this optimize as a big deal, is you can say, all right, I need this to load within X number of seconds, or it needs to be this many kilobytes or megabytes. And so as websites are more than flat files, every year the size of websites increases. And so this could put a higher strain on your network and on your actual device. And so Adi says take a look at this, at your CPU constraints, and consider that as you build a new experience. And the second thing, this came from our Think with Google friends, is how search intent is really redefining the marketing funnel. Now, Chris and I did a performance review and we talked about Salesforce.com and how Google Analytics works with Salesforce and how you work with that traditional funnel and take what's a lead all the way up through a closed sale. Very simple, except the world has changed. And so you no longer have that capability where you can attribute something to the very last click or even the first click. You have that ability to say, well, there's multiple hops along the way. And what's happening now in the review is that you have dozens to hundreds of activities before you actually take an action. And so these things are no longer a straightforward funnel as you develop a customer, make them happier and happier, and they go through and make an actual acquisition. But they can broaden their choices in unpredictable moments. And so as a marketer, someone who runs any kind of brand, you have to find out how to handle that and what changes. How do you stay top of mind all the time? So you have a combination of product campaigns and also brand campaigns. And really, people are using their devices to get immediate answers. They've got them with them all the time. They want to know, they can just ask Google. And it's been really changing the world and the way the marketing funnel is happening. So check that out. And that brings us to our big question. And this time it's not so much a big question, it's like a big topic.
Yeah.
Real-time analytics. And one thing I like about real-time is everybody enjoys this. People want to know, how is this blog post performing? How is my new website performing? And they can project on the screen and see who's on their site. But it's more than just a little graph.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a total hot topic. It's been that way for a couple years, although I actually see it rising more and more over time. Really what used to be something that the most advanced clients of ours were doing in terms of like real-time optimization of their websites, which wasn't even really done back in the day programmatically. This is like literally humans like driving this process, is now beginning to be programmatized. And a lot more people are coming on board because it's becoming cheaper. And systems like Google Analytics are now offering this level of support as a basic level of support, opening the door for all of these use cases to actually be available to everybody.
And what do you mean by the real time's getting programmatized?
Yeah, so we'll get to this in a little bit, but basically there's three ways of looking at real-time understanding. Like what's happening right this second. Usually when you need to know what's happening right this second, you have to reduce the scope of things that you're looking at, right? So you look at maybe a simplified view of the data, the top pages that are trending, the top products or something like that, maybe the worst trending on both sides as well, and you're adapting to that. But then there's also the need, like once you find something, to kind of dive deeper, right? Dig in through the data and figure out more stuff that might be hidden under the covers of what you're looking at in that simplified view. So in GA, we kind of offer this in two flavors. You can get access to the data in the UI, but you can also get access to the data in BigQuery. And both of these systems can be programmatic. In GA, we have remarketing, right? We have our real-time remarketing systems, lightning fast, but limited in some respect with respect to how you can target the data that you can bring together and use for an audience. Obviously, as you guys, well, maybe it's not obvious, but as you guys may or may not know, BigQuery enables you to extend and join any data set, right? So if you really want to take this and personalize it to some nth degree, you might need to go to BigQuery. And in BigQuery as well, actually, in addition to, there are many ways of programmatizing things with the cloud tooling. So, and extending your data and making it very powerful. So that's really what I mean.
We've talked a lot about BigQuery on this show. We did a big deep dive into that with advanced analysis. And really, once you get BigQuery data into Data Studio, it really takes your content to another level.
It does. It does. And you can hook up Data Studio even to the real-time table. So because you can just point Data Studio at any table, we have a real-time export into BigQuery that exports data roughly every 10 to 12 minutes. And you can hook up a Data Studio dashboard to just point to that and look at that. That would be similar to the real-time reports we give in GA today, but extending the full set of all first-party data into that report, so making it much more powerful.
So when we look at this slide, we talk about Google Analytics data being complex and more is coming. So obviously you got Salesforce here, not a Google product.
Correct.
But when you take a look at this, so what kind of data is coming into the system?
Yeah, so a lot, and this really doesn't even cover the full picture, to be perfectly honest. So as you can see here, and here's a little bit of the rebranding that Lewis brought up. You can see all the nice new logos here. We integrate obviously with our own stack, so to speak. So we have integration with Google Ads. We have our integration with display and video. We also have the integration with our GMP that integrates with Optimize and Data Studio, and that's what that top one kind of represents the whole suite.
And you're saying a lot of acronyms like GMP, Google Marketing Platform, GA, Google Analytics. I think the people watching this show know, but
Correct.
just always good.
Sorry, I'm
reference.
so deep in my own world. Sometimes I got to pull myself back out.
We have to live here. This is the thing.
Yeah, and then obviously, like we were just talking about, Cloud and Salesforce are other data sets that I've put here as like first class integrations. But this isn't it. We widen our mobile data based on a universal device library. We widen our geo data based on the IP, right? We do a number of things as in addition to augment and make more easily usable the data that you're already sending to us in the hits from analytics.js or hopefully GTAG at this point.
GTAG.js.
Yeah. So this slide, just to cover this, is just to say that Google Analytics is accepting first-party hits, but it's also integrating and joining a bunch of other data at the same time. That makes for a very complex processing pipeline, to be perfectly honest. And then if we can go to the next one, the point is that all of this is happening. We're integrating all of this data, yet at the same time, data is being delivered in seconds into real-time reports, in a matter of minutes into the rest of all reports, and into BigQuery, enabling you guys programmatic optimization opportunities. So how does this all kind of work? How does it all fit together? The secret, Lewis, is that it's not one thing. It's not one pipeline, right? It's not like one, if you can imagine, one set of workers, one set of like worker bees, like processing a hit and then passing it off to one people. No, what actually happens is there's multiple processes. The hit that comes in and arrives and is ingested by our platform is forked and sent into different layers to deliver different levels of support at different latency. So here are, again, kind of a high-level summary of how that's delivered today. So we do have real-time reports. These are the reports that you will see called real-time reports in the left nav in Google Analytics today. They are a limited set of reports. Like I said before, oftentimes it is useful to get a limited set. I think people would push back and say, I think you guys could widen that set of data, and we'll get to that. I totally agree. But this is where you guys can go and see like what's your top trending locations, products, pages, and react to what's happening right now, this second, right? So you hit the launch button, you look at the real-time reports, and you start to see the impact of hitting that launch button. That's what's so great about that.
And what I like about this is we often talk about your data is only so good as what you do with it. And so
Correct.
we're trying to deliver you data that's actionable. And so, as someone who's kind of lived in the publisher world for a long time, if you see certain pages are trending or, wow, this referral is really spiking, and you can get an understanding and say, okay, well, what's changed? What changed today? What changed in the last hour? What changed in the last minute? And it's amazing to see the way that people use real-time analytics is kind of the pulse of the company, where literally, and we've had outages. This happens because it's complex, like you said.
Yeah.
But if it goes down for 20 minutes, I'm going to hear about it, and people want to know: is it me? Is it you guys? And so this is something that is exceptionally critical and hard. And so we have to find a way to reduce the complexity, even if it's hard for us, to make it simple for the people who are analyzing and taking action on it. On the other side.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's a fair point that sometimes I need to get beyond what's available there, right? I need to get more complex. Maybe it's not just the region or the location or the referral or the page that can tell me exactly what's going on. None of those things are the silver bullet, right? Maybe it's a technology thing. Maybe there's a JavaScript error in a particular browser, right? And it's an important browser. Maybe it's, the most popular browser on the internet or something that's not working for your website, and you do need to react to that level of data. And that's why we enhanced our batch processing, our processing that used to deliver all the regular first-party reports with real-time data, effectively 12-minute fresh data in our UI for all data that comes in, again, via the analytics.js or hopefully, again, gtag.js at this point. I do want to underline that. This doesn't cover the integrations. And that's a question that I get a lot. Why doesn't this cover the integrations? It doesn't because, as you saw in the other graphic, most of our integrations on the input side are integrations related to sources of data like ads that do need some verification to make sure that they're real. So if we passed a hit with the referral source from an ad that was clicked fraudulently, and we passed that into our system, it's more or less there somewhat permanently.
Right.
And we don't like that.
And you're essentially taking bad data and then copying it in other places.
Yeah, and we're putting it into the system where people are supposed to react to it and act on it in that minute, right? So we're reticent to do that. We don't want to give data that could possibly be seen as false. That's like the worst thing an analytics product could do. It's better for us to hold the data and give it to you when we know it is accurate. So that data still comes in about 1 to 2 hours fresh. That's still very fresh, but it's not 10 to 12 minutes. Can we work on that? Yes, and we are thinking about how can we speed that up. But there are asymptotes here, right? We do need to recognize that we're looking for accuracy here, and we do need to check the other system, make sure it's accurate, and deliver you the most accurate data.
Cool.
So then the last system I'll talk about is BigQuery. So there is another little secret for BigQuery, and that's that this processing pipeline, while BigQuery is one of the last things we do in the processing pipeline, it's actually not the last thing that we do. And that's because we can export the data after it's basically processed and before we do what we call aggregation. Aggregation being a step that makes efficient and very fast all the regular reports that you see in our user interface. And that takes a couple minutes. We had the choice. It was a dumb choice, to be honest, and it was an obvious choice. But we could hold the data and not send it to BigQuery until aggregation was done, or we could expose it to BigQuery as fast as possible. Clearly, the value for the user is to expose it as fast as possible, so we did. So that data is actually a couple minutes fresher than the data you'll see in the UI. So if you notice that, that's by design. And actually, that could be a potential advantage to any programmatic flow that you set up inside of BigQuery.
Yeah, and BigQuery is so powerful that you just let it have the data.
Yeah, let it have it as soon as possible, right? So then the next set of questions that I usually get is like, okay, so you have these systems, some of the data is in some of these places and it's not in other these places. So like, when do I use what, right? So the real short answer is that, as we were saying, real-time data is for you to understand what's happening right this second. I pushed a button, I launched an article, a new product is going out, and I want to see what's happening in the first few minutes of the existence of that product. That's real-time. It's also great as like a company level switchboard, and that's where this graphic comes from, right? So it is common for editor rooms in a publisher or certain pods in an e-commerce place to have this up on a dashboard so that they can generally all be looking at the same source of truth on a second-by-second basis.
And not only that, you get to understand what a baseline is. And
exactly.
So, if I have a number that says 500, but I have no context, I don't know if that's good or bad.
Exactly.
But as you start to look at it and say, well, we routinely have a number that looks like 2,000, and today it's at 300 or it's at 5,000, it's something I need to check out with just that variation. And one thing we've also discussed a lot is analytics intelligence, and that you might not even have to look because our app will tell you.
Yeah.
It'll tell you there's some kind of variance that's going on that you need to look into.
Totally, exactly. So then, why would I use the other data? Well, the other, this is like all standard reports now. You have all the data here, right? So like I said before, there might be something that isn't available in real-time reports, some technology dimension or some custom dimension that you guys have that determines the experience that you're noticing on the real-time reports. This is where you can dive deeper. This is where you can really understand what's happening, ask those second, third, and fourth level questions to figure out and react. This data is like 10 minutes fresh. It's not slow, but what I've typically found with some of my clients, and although some do want this to be a little bit faster, is that typically clients can't react to something really intense and deep on the order of a couple seconds anyway, right? To Lewis's point, you don't want to react to in a couple seconds to something complex, right? You should react in a couple seconds to something more like obvious. And that's what the data is curated for in the real-time reports, data that we know would be useful for that kind of real-time reaction. But here, for all the data, it's going to take me a little bit of time to set up a process to really dive in. Still super fresh. That's what it's for. It's for digging a little bit deeper and figuring out why exactly did I see that in my real-time reports.
Right. We want to get the accuracy there, and you want to get it actionable, right?
Exactly.
And if it's just noise, that's not helpful to anybody. And obviously what you're working on is trying to get it to be the most fresh, the most accurate, and the most recent. And we'll keep moving that. Maybe the next time we have this conversation,
exactly.
it'll be 8 minutes.
We're still moving the bar. We still want to make it fresh, fresher, I should say. But there's no excuse to not start now, right?
Absolutely.
The system is totally fresh. It can be better, and we're working on that. It's a process of continuous improvement. As a PM, I never think I'm done. I never
Right.
think it's good enough. Once we get to 8 minutes, I'll want 6. We get 6, I'll want 4, right? That's
Right.
just the kind of person I am.
This is interesting because as someone who uses multiple platforms and we look at our stats, I think we're a little bit spoiled up here on GA. Here we are complaining and apologizing for 10 minutes or 12 minutes. There are platforms which I literally have to wait until midnight to get
Yeah.
the day's stats.
Yeah.
And then even then I have to wait for them to do a batch process and maybe it's ready at 1:30 a.m. or 2 a.m., right? And so you literally are only working with yesterday's data or last week's data or last month's data when they do a poll.
Yeah.
And that's traditionally been the case. And we kind of accepted it from different platforms. And it shouldn't have to be like that. Once you get to the point where you expect it to be real time, it's live, we want to apply that to just about everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think we're sitting at the high end of the expectation curve. We're hearing the biggest sets of expectations, the highest needs from our clients, and that's where my mind is kept, and that's probably a good thing for all clients, honestly. But yeah, it is super fast, and it a couple years ago wasn't even close to this fast. We've made a lot of improvements, and quite frankly, we're still working on improvements. So then the last piece, like when do I use BigQuery? BigQuery probably isn't the place that you want to jump in to understand what's going on right now. Most people just don't have that savvy. You could set up a Data Studio dashboard, and then at that point, yes, please, that's like jumping into regular report at that point, and that's great. Do that. But you're probably not jumping into BigQuery and running an ad hoc query to react in an order of minutes. Statisticians don't usually work on that level of speed, right? And most people that aren't statisticians aren't really jumping in to run ad hoc queries, right? You want someone to check it and verify that things are right before you act on it.
And one thing we're looking at is kind of this dichotomy of machine readable versus human readable.
Exactly.
And so you were talking about pushing BigQuery in a Data Studio. What that's doing is translating language for machines to languages for people. And that's why part of why Data Studio has been so popular is that we're able to visually present the data in a quickly graspable way.
Right. But let's not lose out on the fact that machine level speed is incredibly cool and important and can really meet the needs of our users. So that's really what I would say BigQuery is for. Should you be jumping into BigQuery to understand what happened after you push the launch button? No, use Realtime Reports, use Data Studio for that. Should I be jumping in to figure out like a complex issue? Probably not. You can use GA reports. Maybe if you need to link in some other third-party data set, you might have to jump into BigQuery, but probably not. But once you find something, once you find a pattern that really is truly something that works or doesn't work, BigQuery is where you can impact the user experience programmatically and enhance, make more of a certain user flow or set of users, or stop something from happening. Get in the way of a user during a point of confusion during a user flow. So I see BigQuery as a place where you take an idea that you have used the other real-time reports and the other reports to build, and you programatize that. You make that machine speed so that it can actually act on a user way faster than any human could and reach them at that point of intent before they've kind of left and moved on. So for me to close, I think I just want to leave you guys with a couple key points. GA is real time. That's what we consider GA real time for all first-party data. But we're not done, right? Like it is real time, but we're working on it. We think it could be a little bit fresher, a little bit faster, and we're still going on this. But to the extent that we can, right now GA is as real time as we can get it. Also, we support all of our endpoints. I get this question a lot. Can I get this data out of the API? Like, is this available in certain places or not in other places? Basically, all the data is available in all the places we possibly can give it. So you have real-time reports both in the UI and in the API. You have the ability to query for today's data, which gives you access to the standard real-time reporting data, both in the UI and the API. And BigQuery, obviously, is exported. And then lastly, BigQuery mostly, but also our real-time pipeline extends programmatic to your use cases. And I really want to challenge our clients to understand that it is here now. It is not something that is coming. I have clients that have actively used BigQuery as a real-time personalization engine. I've done this with companies the size of about 10 people, and I've seen companies the size, multiple thousand people do these efforts. It's available today, and I challenge everybody to start thinking about what you can do today to really make use of real-time data.
Well, I appreciate that. So, Breen, this is why I wanted you to come on this show. Obviously, Krista's been my tag team partner from day one. She's excellent on it. We've had guests.
And I'm no Krista. I will apologize. I am no Krista.
Well, if only we could duplicate her and have her everywhere. It'd be awesome.
Sure.
But in the meantime, she is going to be back in a couple of weeks for our next Measure Matters episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Breen. Thank you for everybody watching for joining us as well. We're going to be back in 2 weeks to talk about Google Optimize. And if you've missed any of these shows, you can check out our playlist on YouTube at tinyurl.com/measurematters. I'm Louis Gray. My guest has been Breen Baker, and we'll see you again. Measure Matters.